March 3, 2025, Willow Lane, Ohio. Heather Whitlow had seen her fair share of oddities in old homes. She'd chalked it up to the usual suburban decay. Dated paneling, creaky ductwork, the scent of mildew in corners where the sun never reached. But that morning, as she cleared out the laundry room with her husband Darren, her eyes caught something different. Behind a shelving unit thick with dust, the faintest seam split the wooden wall, just a jagged line, barely more than a shadow. It had been painted over, sealed with decades of neglect. Her breath hitched as she stepped closer. Darren was pulling out baseboards, humming softly, unaware of her sudden stillness. "You see this?" she murmured. Darren came over, tools in hand. He knocked lightly. "Hollow. Probably just a crawl space. You know how these old houses are. Half the plumbing's still steel." Heather didn't respond. Her arms folded tightly, a frown deepening across her face. "You said the inspector found nothing under this side of the house." Either way, he'd feel a jar. The window broke into following. "He missed some things," Darren said, already prying at the molding. It took only minutes to uncover the small wooden hatch, no more than 3 feet high, sealed with brittle caulk and rusty screws. Time had worked its way into the cracks. "Want to open it?" he asked. Heather hesitated, flashlight already in hand. "Not really," she replied, but she was already crouching. The final screw gave way with a groan, and as Darren pulled the hatch open, cold air flooded the room. It carried the scent of soil, wet, sour, metallic, something ancient. Heather swallowed hard and clicked on the light. Dust shimmered in the beam, then shadows. The space extended farther than either of them expected, 8 feet deep, maybe more. Plastic sheeting dangled like cobwebs from above. And then, something nestled in the darkness. Fabric. Purple. Faded. A child's backpack. Heather stepped closer, heart thudding. The bag slumped against the wall, its corners caved in, its color dulled by time. Pink trim, cartoon eyes scratched away by decades. Darren knelt beside her. "That's really old," he muttered. "Don't touch it." But it was too late. He had already crossed into the space. The crawl space moaned under his weight. Something shifted. Darren reached forward and gently dragged the backpack back into the light. A cloud of dust rose like ash, and Heather turned, coughing. Darren unzipped the bag slowly. Inside, yellowed papers curled with decay, a cracked plastic comb, a pair of socks, discolored and stiff, and beneath it all, something wrapped in a faded hand towel, a small silver camera. He held it up, stunned. "Minolta 110. Jesus, this thing's ancient." Heather's voice was barely above a whisper. "We need to call someone." "Like who?" Darren asked, eyes still fixed on the camera. Heather didn't answer. She was already dialing. Her hand trembled. As Darren stepped away, setting the backpack down, he glanced once more into the dark hollow. Something else lay there. No bag, no box. Just an impression. A shape. A small, childlike curl in the dust. A hollow in the earth. A ghost made of space. The sun was sinking when the police arrived. 2 patrol officers, 1 detective, Val Mercer from Columbus Cold Cases. She said little, just watched the forensic team cordon off the room. "Anyone ever tell you about this house?" she asked without turning. Heather shook her head. "Only that it was a foreclosure, bank-owned." Val paused. "Back in 1981, a girl went missing here." Heather froze. "What?" "A sleepover," Val continued. 7 girls. 1 didn't wake up. Lorianne West, 9 years old, her jacket, her shoes, everything still there the next morning. No break-in, no signs of struggle. House changed hands 3 times since. Darren leaned against the wall, his face pale. And nobody ever found this? Val didn't answer. She was staring at the evidence tech, who had just lifted the camera, still sealed in its ancient casing. 44 years old, the tech said. Could be damaged, or it could be everything. That night, the house was sealed with crime tape. Heather and Darren sat in their driveway, hollowed by the weight of it all. What if she was in there the whole time? Heather whispered. Darren didn't speak. His eyes never left the house. Inside, the crawl space gaped open, breathless and dark, like a mouth waiting to speak. In her office, under the flicker of aging fluorescent lights, Detective Val Mercer stared at the evidence bag. The camera would be sent to Quantico's imaging lab by morning. She opened the case file. 81-92. Lori Ann West. One report caught her eye. A statement from one of the girls. She said the walls made noises, that the house whispered, that behind the dryer there was a secret door, and something inside waited for her. Val closed the file. Tomorrow, she would visit Lorian's mother. And when the film was developed, maybe, just maybe, they would finally see what Lori Ann saw that night. At the FBI's Quantico lab, the cartridge was unlike anything they had handled before. 44 years in pitch dark, trapped beneath layers of dust and insulation. No light, no warmth, no hope. But still, it survived. Val arrived just after confirmation. Through sterile halls, she followed her escort in silence. When they reached the evidence room, she let her hands fall to her hips. "Any idea what's on it?" she asked. The tech, a veteran of analog recovery, didn't look up. Negatives are cloudy. Mold maybe, but they've been exposed. Val nodded once. And waited. Val stepped closer. The cartridge lay dissembled beneath the soft light of the evidence hood, a ghost from another time. The air smelled faintly of old cellulose and something else. Age, grief, memory. She glanced at the intake report. Camera discovered in a child's backpack, the bag itself buried inside a crawl space beneath a private residence. A girl, 9 years old, had vanished from that house in 1981. His camera belonged to her. The technician nodded solemnly, as if acknowledging the weight of it. "Then let's find out what she saw," he said. It took nearly 2 painstaking hours to extract 5 usable frames from the brittle negatives. Just 5. Val sat in the far corner of the lab as each one was slowly rendered, digitized, and enhanced with care. No one spoke. The hum of the scanner was the only sound in the room. The first image emerged, a living room, grainy, dim, unmistakably outdated. Shag carpet, a beanbag chair, a wood-paneled TV console. The timestamp read 9:13 p.m. 7 sleeping bags surrounded the coffee table, the tiny silhouettes of children nestled inside like a wreath of innocence. One girl sat upright in the frame, her mouth open in laughter. That was Lori. Val knew it with an ache that settled deep into her chest. Next came the second frame, 9:17 p.m., same room, but darker now. The TV was off. The camera had shifted lower, the angle child had unsteady. Something blurred moved in the top left corner. A shadow, a motion out of place. Val leaned forward. The third image was taken from the floor near the laundry room door. It was angled and fuzzy, like someone had dropped the camera. But in the corner of the frame, the heavy tread of a man's boot, black, scuffed, and looming, stepped into view. Val's pulse slowed. Her hands felt cold. The fourth image was pure darkness at first, but in the center, with just enough contrast, something emerged. A face. Close to the ground, childlike, eyes wide in terror, and behind it, the unmistakable outline of a hand, clamped tight over the mouth. The timestamp read 12:46 IMM. Val sat back in her chair, her blood cold. Then, slowly, the fifth frame began to render. The frames, the pictures, and it was the clearest of them all. A shot taken from inside the crawl space, the camera aimed outward. The world outside looked like it was slipping away. A single child's shoe sat in the beam of a flashlight, purple laced and small. It was an image of someone being buried. Alive. "Jesus," the technician breathed. Val didn't answer. Her fingers were already dialing. "Back in Ohio," Heather answered on the third ring. "We just developed the film," Val said. "Don't look at it unless you're ready. I'll bring a copy by in the morning." "Is it bad?" Heather asked, voice trembling. Val glanced once more at the shoe, the mouth, the unseen hand frozen in time. "It's not good." That evening, Val sat in her car in front of a weathered ranch house on the edge of town. The siding had faded to pale green, the aluminum awning sagged, the steps cracked. She hadn't been here in decades. Lorianne West's mother still lived at the same address. Val wasn't in uniform. She didn't bring a badge or warrant, just a manila envelope and a hollow weight in her chest. The door opened before she knocked. A woman in her 70s stood there, gray hair pulled into a tired clip, eyes sunken but sharp. "Mrs. West," Val asked gently. "I know who you are," the woman said. Her voice was rough, not unkind, just tired, in a way that lived deep in the bones. "I have something," Val said. "It might be hard to see." "Everything's hard to see," the woman replied and stepped aside. The living room was modest, still. Older furniture. A quiet space. No photos of Laurie on the walls, just the memory of what was lost. "I want you to know," Val said, choosing every word like it mattered. "We believe your daughter's disappearance was not an accident. We've found something from the house, and it confirms she didn't leave on her own." The woman didn't speak. She just held out her hand. Val hesitated, then passed the envelope across. One by one, the woman unfolded the photos. When she reached the final image, the shoe, the light, the void, she didn't cry. Didn't speak. She simply stared. "She told me, the woman said at last. Her voice broke like old timber. "The week before she disappeared, she said there was something in the wall. Said the house had a secret mouth. I thought she was pretending." She exhaled. "I told the police. They said kids say strange things. That she probably wandered off, but she didn't. I knew it. She was afraid of the dark. Wouldn't even go to the bathroom alone." Her eyes locked onto the photo again. "That's her shoe. She wore those when she was nervous. I told her they were falling apart, but she didn't care." Val nodded slowly. "We're reopening the case. I need to talk to the others, the girls who were at the sleepover. Thank you for the wonderful magic, mistress. They just buried it." Back in Columbus, Val sat in her cold office. She wrote 7 names on the whiteboard in red marker, the girls from that night. They were women now, scattered, renamed, some hidden, one already gone. 6 remained. She would start with the one closest, Stephanie Geller, now 53, living just outside Newark. An elementary school counselor, married, 2 adult kids. Stephanie agreed to meet, but her voice on the phone shook, clipped and wary. They sat in her kitchen. Everything was still, even the ticking clock felt loud. "I never thought I'd have to talk about this again," Stephanie began. "I figured one day someone might ask, but not like this, not now." "Do you remember what happened?" Val asked softly. Stephanie nodded, the motion slight. "I've spent my life trying not to, but yeah, I remember." She pushed her untouched coffee aside. "We were watching The Dark Crystal. Someone brought it on VHS. Laurie hated it. said the puppets were creepy, wanted Sleeping Beauty instead. There was an argument, nothing big. Eventually, we changed it. Lori curled up in the corner. She looked sad. Stephanie's gaze dropped to the tabletop. And then she screamed. Val sat forward, heart quickening. That had never been in the reports. None of us told anyone. Her parents assumed she ran off. We were scared. I was scared. What happened? Stephanie's voice cracked. I was half asleep, but I heard it, not a scream, really, just a sharp sound, like someone grabbed her. Heather Jarvis and I both sat up. The laundry room light was on. The door, it was open. Did you see anyone? No, just movement. I thought maybe she got up to go to the bathroom. But then it got quiet, too quiet. I went to check, she continued, voice breaking. The light was off. I opened the door anyway. It was pitch black. And I heard something. Breathing. Wet. Like it was trying not to be heard. What did you do? I shut the door and ran. I didn't tell anyone. I just laid down. Heather asked if I was okay. I said yeah. I lied. Why didn't you tell the police? I was 9, and nobody listens to a kid who says something's alive in the walls. Val reached into her bag and slid the 5th photo across the table. Stephanie stared, then picked it up, her hand trembling. Bless. That's the door, she whispered. We didn't know it was there, but that's where she went. Val left the house with more than she expected. Confirmation, clarity, and the first fracture in a wall of silence. One by one, she found the others. Heather Jarvis vomited when she saw the photos. Robin Ames lawyered up. Megan Holloway cried before the interview even began. Julie Rhee said nothing. Until Val returned home that night and found a voicemail waiting. I lied. We all lied. It wasn't supposed to happen like that, but someone let him in, one of the adults. The next morning, Val returned to Willow Lane. Heather was in the backyard, hands buried in soil, trying to keep busy. I don't go near the laundry room anymore, she said. The smell's gone, but it still feels like it remembers. Val didn't go inside just yet. She walked slowly around the side of the house, her boots crunching lightly on the frost-kissed ground. Crouching near the foundation, her eyes locked onto something half-hidden, a narrow metal vent, no more than 6 inches tall. It had rusted almost shut, choked with leaves and dirt, but what caught her attention was the soil. It had been disturbed recently, trails in the dirt, thin and uneven, as if something, or someone, had been dragged through. That evening, she revisited the original case files. Lori and West's father, David West, had been questioned in 1981 but never charged. He'd had a solid alibi. He left for work at the paper mill before dinner and returned after police were already at the house. Helen West, the mother, insisted he'd kissed Lori goodnight before leaving. But Val's notes held a detail others overlooked. David's brother Gerald had been staying with them that weekend, a drifter, unemployed, struggled with mental illness. There was no follow-up interview, no address, no photo. Val searched state records. Gerald West had died in 1992, suicide. Found in a cheap motel outside Akron. No one claimed the body, cremated, buried in a shared grave. The motel room inventory listed one item that caught Val's breath. A small plastic comb. Cartoon cats. The same kind found in the backpack. He had taken a souvenir, which meant he had taken Lori, and unless someone helped him, he got her out of the house. The crawl space wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. That night, Heather Whitlow heard the noise again. She was walking past the laundry room, house dark, Darren asleep, when the hum began. Low, rhythmic, almost like breathing beneath the walls. Her steps slowed. Her hand reached for the dryer. The forensic team had cleared the crawl space. There shouldn't have been anything left, but her instincts screamed otherwise. She turned on the light. It flickered, then steadied. The air was colder here. The tiles chilled her bare feet. She bent, shining her phone behind the dryer. That's when she saw it. A seam. Another hidden panel, half the size of the first, flushed with the wall. Forgotten. By morning, the house had dropped 2 degrees. Heather called Val. By 8:15 a.m., the room was full again. Val, Darren, a forensic tech from Columbus, 2 officers. Heather stood in the hall in a hoodie, arms crossed tightly. Val examined the panel. This one was added later. Looks like someone realized the crawl space was too obvious, but this was personal. The tech scanned the wall. Something metal and wiring, possibly a camera. Heather flinched. Back in the 80s, even predators experimented with closed-circuit setups. Val said, if Gerald was alone, he might have used this to observe the kids. Or he wasn't alone. The panel was opened carefully. A suitcase-sized cavity behind it. Inside, bolted to the studs, was a military surplus recorder, 1980s vintage, wired to a long-dead battery. But the reel was intact. Can you play it? Not safely, I'll send it to Quantico. That afternoon, Val stared at the whiteboard in her office. Strings, names, faces. At the center, someone let him in. Because Gerald couldn't have entered unnoticed. This was small-town Ohio. Doors were watched, and someone knew he was there. Helen West claimed Gerald had left before the sleepover. Said he caught a bus, but there was no ticket, no witness, no trail. Then, David's statement. I thought I heard something downstairs when I left for work. A door shutting. He thought it was Gerald. But what if Gerald never left? The FBI had found Gerald's fingerprints on the crawl space hatch, but they also found one, unmatched partial. On the inside of the new panel, Val requested a cross-check, match it against David West's file. That night, Quantico called. The tape was cleaned, ready. The first part is quiet, the tech said. Then a girl's voice, calling for her mom. Says she hears someone breathing. She's crying. Then, music box. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. Then, a man's voice, barely a whisper. If you lie again, you'll go where she went. Val closed her eyes. That voice. It wasn't just male, it was familiar. The partial print came back, not Gerald's. It belonged to David West. 44 years, all that time, and the father had been right there, at the services, at the interviews, the grieving parent. A lie. Val called the field office, got a warrant. Officers were dispatched. Morning came gray and silent. Val waited outside the West home. David stepped out, mail in hand. Pressed flannel, neat khakis, a man who looked like every other suburban retiree. David West, she called. He looked up. Yes? We have a warrant to search your home. His expression didn't change. Is this about the crawl space? It is. Would you like to come in? Inside, the home smelled of lemon polish. The photos on the wall showed birthdays, vacations, only one of Lori. Helen West stood in the doorway. David? It's fine, he said. They're just doing their job. Val followed him into the basement. He walked calmly, deliberately, to the far wall. She let him in, David said softly. I heard her, whispering, through the vent. I told her never to open the door, but she did. I gave her a chance, told her to stay quiet, stay hidden, but she screamed. Val stared. Her voice was quiet but firm. "She was just a child." David nodded. "And that's why I didn't do worse." But he had. And now the house finally spoke the truth. He placed his hand on the wall. "I didn't mean to kill her. I needed her to learn not to lie." Val stepped back, disgust tightening in her throat. "You buried your daughter alive?" she said, voice shaking. David turned to her, eyes dry. "She betrayed the family." 2 officers stepped in, cuffing him. He offered no resistance. As they led him up the stairs, Helen West sank into a chair and whispered, I didn't know he was still here." That night he told me Gerald had taken her. He cried so hard." Val stared at her. "You let him bury your daughter under your home and lived here for 44 years. Helen repeated herself, but her voice cracked. "I didn't know." Val left without another word. That night, back at the station, she filed the formal charges. David West, first-degree murder, kidnapping, obstruction of justice, unlawful confinement of a minor. But something still gnawed at her. The whisper on the tape. It was David's voice, yes, but there was another voice too, fainter, older, female. She returned to the transcript. At the very end of the recording, buried under static, after David's chilling threat, another line echoed, "She knows too much." Val sat in the dark evidence room, headphones on, only the glow of the waveform on her laptop illuminating her face. The Realtor audio had been processed, filtered, slowed, stripped. She wasn't listening to the child's breathing or David's whisper anymore. She looped the last 5 seconds. "If you lie again, you'll go where she went." And beneath it, barely a breath, "She knows too much." Not a hallucination, not an artifact, a second voice, a woman's voice. Val leaned forward. If David had buried Lori, who had helped him? More importantly, was she still alive? The obvious answers stared her in the face. Helen West. For 4 decades, she'd presented herself as the grieving mother, but even in her earliest interviews, something was off, too precise, too clean. She'd never cried in front of the officers. She always redirected suspicion back toward Gerald. Val reopened the 1981 transcripts. One line stopped her cold. In one version, Helen claimed she fell asleep on the couch and woke to the sound of screaming. In another, she said she and David went to bed early and heard nothing. 2 different accounts. No one questioned it. The timeline showed Lori disappeared between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m. The other girls remembered the TV being turned off, a shadow in the hall, someone moving toward the laundry room. Helen's shadow? By morning, Val was back at the West house. Yellow tape fluttered on the porch. She rang the bell. Helen answered in the same pale cardigan she wore the day of David's arrest. "You again," she said flatly. "I need to ask a few follow-ups, Mrs. West." Helen stepped aside. "I suppose you want me to confess now, too?" Val entered. The air was thick with potpourri over stale fabric. "Should you?" Helen sank into the couch. "I didn't kill her. I didn't know until 5 years after the funeral. David got drunk, said he hadn't meant to, that she screamed, that he panicked. And what did you do?" Helen's eyes drifted up. "I made him stop talking, made him promise to never bring it up again. You covered for him and protected my son, my name, our family. You were there that night. You weren't asleep, you weren't in bed, you were near the crawl space." Helen shook her head, then whispered, "I never went in." Val leaned in. "But we have a voice on tape, a woman's voice, right after David's. It says, 'She knows too much.' It's faint, but it's you. You were there. You saw. Maybe you helped." A long silence stretched. Helen's fingers twitched on her lap. She was going to tell. she whispered. About the photos, about the camera. She saw something she shouldn't have.
You have?
Val froze. What photos? David had a dark room. You didn't find it, did you? Val stood. Show me. Ellen rose like someone cracking open from within. She led Val past the treadmill, through a closet door, down a narrow stairwell not on the house plans, into a hidden root cellar. The air reeked of mold and developer fluid. A rusted enlarger sat on a table, red light bulb dangling. On a shelf, Val found it, a cabinet filled with photos, negatives, kids, sleeping, playing, looking through vents. One image stopped her. Lori brushing her teeth, unaware. The date on the back? September 10th, 10:14 p.m. Val snapped on gloves and bagged everything. Helen sat silently in the stairwell. People replied, "It's enough light for them." She said. It wasn't about hurting them, she muttered. He just liked watching. And you let him. Ellen didn't reply. Back at the station, Val began processing, cross-referencing faces, schools, dates. It was bigger than anyone imagined. Lori wasn't the first, maybe not the only one. She reopened Gerald's file. David used him as a scapegoat. Gerald had no criminal record. But the motel inventory from 1992 listed 3 items: a child's comb, a single shoe, and a photo. A photo of Lori. Signed by David. You did good, brother. She's quiet now. Val dropped the file. They were both involved. David had buried her. Gerald had prepared her. Helen had sealed the wall. 1 family, 3 accomplices, and no one noticed. Until now. She returned to the crawl space that night. The new drywall was clean, sealed. Val sat before it and whispered, "I believe you." A soft thud came from behind the wall, like shifting weight. Then a voice, not Lori's, low, breath-like, "I'm not the only one." Val's breath caught. She wasn't chasing one ghost. She was uncovering a graveyard. 3 days later she found it. Permit filed in 1979. David West had requested hidden wall channels, substructural access, no inspection, no follow-up, just a stamp. He built tunnels, hidden corridors. Years before Lori vanished. Val returned to Willow Lane. The house was empty, Heather and Darren long gone. The storm was coming, wind pushing at the trees. She entered with keys and a flashlight, traced the old plans, found the chute, crawled in. The tunnel narrowed, then opened. A chamber. No light. No vent. Drawings covered the walls, childish, stick figures. A girl in the corner, a man with no face. Words repeated. She watches. Don't cry. Stay quiet. In the center, a faded Care Bears blanket. Toys, a bracelet, alphabet beads. M-A-R-Y. Bell radioed in. Search for a missing Mary 1979193 within 100 miles. Dispatcher called back. Marianne Gutierrez, missing, July 1980. Mansfield, no suspect, no body. Until now. David West had started long before Lori. Mary hadn't vanished. She'd been kept. The room held no remains. Just the echo of a child who never got to leave. Val exited the chamber, marked it, walked outside. Rain had begun. But she wasn't done. She drove to the cemetery to see the marker. Lori Ann West. A stone placed above an empty grave. The grave sat quiet on a gentle hill, the sky a pale canvas above it. Lori Ann West, born 1972, vanished 1981, Found 2025. The marker read, "She sleeps beneath the stars she once counted." Someone had left fresh flowers, but there was something else, too. A toy music box, old and rusted. Val knelt, rain dripping from her coat sleeves. She opened the lid. The melody began, "Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star." It wasn't warped, not like the crawl space tape. This version was perfect, clean, deliberate. The tune ended with a soft click. Inside the lid was a folded piece of paper. She opened it. The handwriting was childish, uneven. "She's not done." Below it, another line. "She remembers who helped." Val stood, eyes scanning the cemetery. Nothing. Just the wind. Whoever had left it had been here recently, and they knew. Back in her car, Val flipped through her interview logs. Helen was in protective custody. David awaited trial. Gerald was dead. But someone else had known. Someone close. Trusted. She flipped through the original case folder. One name stood out. Ruth Delaney. Laurie's Sunday school teacher. Lived 3 doors down. She had testified in 1981 that Laurie was sweet, obedient, from a good family. She had never been interviewed again. She still lived in the same house, 79 years old now, and according to a long-forgotten neighborhood log, she'd once had a key to the West home. Val's pulse surged. Ruth Delaney had also babysat Mary Gutierrez. The storm deepened as Val pulled up outside Ruth's modest gray brick home. It looked unchanged. Same crooked angel statue in the yard, same worn porch swing swaying in the wind. Lights were on inside. A figure moved in the kitchen window. Val stepped out into the rain. She knocked. No answer. The porch swing creaked behind her, empty. She knocked again, harder. The door opened. Ruth stood small in the doorway, wrapped in a housecoat, white hair pinned back tightly. "I figured you'd come," she rasped. Val held up her badge. "Detective Mercer, I have questions." Ruth nodded once. "Come in, dear, before the cold gets you." Inside smelled of boiled vegetables and thyme. The wallpaper had yellowed. Crucifixes and lambs watched from the walls. In the kitchen, Ruth gestured to a cluttered table, Bible, rotary phone, a tin of candies. "You know why I'm here," Val said. Ruth nodded. "You knew about the crawl space." "I did." Val took a breath. "Did you know about Mary Gutierrez?" Ruth's mouth twitched. "She liked stories. Asked to sleep under the table. I never asked why. She disappeared while under your care. You didn't report it. Because no one would have believed what I saw." Val's eyes narrowed. "Try me." Ruth looked out the window. Her voice dropped. "Laurie came to me. The night after Mary vanished, she stood in my window. Not outside, in the glass, like her reflection stayed when she didn't. Big eyes. She mouthed something. Said, 'She took me, not him.'" Val's throat tightened. "Who was she?" Ruth turned, her eyes clear despite the years. "Helen. She hated Laurie. Said she was weak, too soft. David wanted a boy. Helen wanted a doll. To mold." Val felt the air thicken. "Are you saying Helen was involved?" "And the doctor said Helen was involved?" "I'm saying Helen told David where to dig. She claims she didn't know. She knew. When David got sloppy, she brought in Gerald to take the fall." "Mary?" "She came to me bruised," said Helen pinched her. "Heard crying through the vents. I told her to pray, be brave. The next week she vanished." "You didn't go to the police?" "I told the pastor. He told me not to spread rumors. Told me to trust." Val nearly shook with rage. She reached into her coat, pulled out the drawing found in the crawl space. Crayon scrawl, figure labeled M. She slammed it on the table. She drew this in the hidden room in your neighborhood with your key. Ruth's hands trembled. I should have burned that key. You had access. You saw and said nothing. I was afraid. I thought if I stayed quiet, the house would forget me. Val's voice was a blade. The house doesn't forget. It remembers. Every whisper, every breath. Mary scratched prayers into drywall, and you sat across the street and let her disappear. Ruth wept, but Val had no pity left. You're going to give me everything. Every visit, every strange behavior, every name. Ruth nodded. Helen kept photos, said she was making a trust file. Kids no one would miss. I helped her sort them once. Val leaned in. Where are they now? Emailed them. To a man in Alabama. I never knew who, but the letters came back every Christmas. Montgomery postmark. Val's blood chilled. The case wasn't over, it had just widened. As she turned to go, Ruth whispered, She came back last night. Lori, or something that looked like her, stood in my hallway mirror, smiled, said, You have one more to find. Then she vanished. Rain fell in thick sheets as Val stood beside her car. Ruth's words clawed at her spine. One more child lost in the walls. She called up the envelope Ruth had saved, one of the Christmas cards from Montgomery. Inside, a photo of cardinals. 3 words in looping blue ink. Keep the door. No return address, no name. But Helen West had vanished for 3 weeks in 1983. Official story? Visiting family, but no family was ever confirmed. Val submitted a federal trace. Montgomery liaison agent Myra Walker answered. We had a property seizure in '93. Abandoned church converted into a residence. Owner, Shell Corp. Signed by Eleanor Shaw. Val froze. Alias for Helen West. Yup. Locked since 2007, we found. Disturbing things. Dull heads. Padlocked bedroom doors. Child-sized beds. Any evidence of children? Handprints. Inside closet doors. But no bodies. No missing persons linked to the address. Val whispered, then she's still out there. One more girl. Maybe never reported. She booked a flight. In Montgomery, Myra met her with crime scene photos from 2007. Val flipped through in silence. Room with no windows. Plastic mattress. A bowl with dried milk. On the floor, a drawing. 3 stick figures. 1 small, 1 tall, 1 kneeling. And you take a look at the next panel. The sick boy is kneeling. Written in red. I see her in the pipes. Val's breath caught. She'd seen that phrase before. In Ohio. In the crawl space. She turned another page, a photo from a broken hallway, etched faintly into the wall. My name is Anna. Val dropped the binder. Anna wasn't in the case files. Not in any missing persons report. No Anna West, no Anna Gutierrez, but Ruth's words echoed in her head. She came to me in the glass, told me someone else took her, said Anna watched. Anna told her not to scream. Val's pulse surged. Anna had been there, but she hadn't been a victim. She'd been something else. And Val was going to find her. She had been a witness, raised in the walls, shaped in silence, taught not just to hide but to vanish. And somehow, Anna had survived. Val flew back to Ohio the next morning, straight to Willow Lane. She didn't stop at her office, didn't wait for a warrant. She walked into the house with nothing but a flashlight and instinct down into the crawl space. The smell met her before the light did. Dust, dry and undisturbed. She reached the final chamber where Mary had once drawn on the walls and froze. There was a new drawing. Fresh. Girl curled in the corner, another girl standing in the wall. Between them, scratched into the plaster. She helped them, but she helped me too. Val turned slowly. Anna, she whispered, if you're here, I'm not going to hurt you. I just want to talk. You're safe. Silence. Then a whisper, so faint it barely reached her ears. She's watching. Val stepped closer. I need to know. Did you escape? Are you still hiding? The vent rattled. Something small shifted behind it. A face, pale, wide-eyed, almost undeveloped like a photograph kept in darkness too long, flickered into view, then vanished. A voice followed. Dry. Afraid. But clear. Don't let them take me again. Val dropped to her knees, heart pounding. Anna, she whispered, voice shaking. No one's taking you. Not ever again. A soft click. The wall shifted. A hidden panel swung open. Behind it, beams, cobwebs, and shadows that smelled of forgotten years. And at the end of the passage, crouched low, barely visible in the flashlight beam, a woman. Small, starved, clothed in layers of children's clothes. Her hair matted, her bones sharp beneath pale skin, her fingers twitched when the light touched her. Not a ghost, not a memory, real, alive. Val turned off the flashlight, knelt, opened hands. It's okay. I'm Val. I'm with the police. You're safe. And I didn't run. That was something. Val tried again. You've been here since 1983? Silence. Then a whisper, barely more than wind. Since the day Mary stopped answering. Val's breath hitched. Mary. Hannah had known her, lived beside her, witnessed everything. Did you draw the figures, the messages on the walls? Anna nodded slowly. They told me not to speak, but the walls remembered. Tears blurred Val's vision. How did they keep you hidden? They trained me, Anna said. Helen said I was the good one, quiet, invisible. I learned to crawl without sound, breathe through pipes, wait. Like exercise, she lied. I know. Val reached out. Come with me. You don't have to live in the dark anymore. Anna hesitated. She glanced over her shoulder into the tunnel. He's still here, she whispered. Val tensed. You mean Laurie? Anna shook her head. No, her. The house creaked. Above them, somewhere distant, a door moved. She walks at night, opens doors that should stay closed. She's angry. Val tried to stay calm. Helen's dead, Anna. Not all of her. Behind them, the pipes knocked. Not plumbing, not wind. 3 slow, deliberate taps. Val moved fast, reached for Anna, guided her through the narrow wall into the guest room. Anna trembled, blinded by the light, clinging like a child. Outside, paramedics were waiting. Anna blinked at the daylight, then panicked when they tried to lift her, clung to Val's coat. No more doors, no more rooms. Before leaving home, Val climbed into the ambulance with her. At the hospital, Anna was diagnosed with malnourishment, early osteoporosis, and fractures that had healed incorrectly. She didn't speak again for hours, but in her sleep, she whispered. Names, dates, details. Over and over, 2 words. Mother house. Val wrote everything down. A map of horror, names scribbled in a nurse's notebook, not just survival. Anna remembered. What Helen did. What David built. What Ruth allowed. Before Val left, Anna grabbed her hand. Her voice was clear. I wasn't the last. Val's blood turned cold. There were others. She took them somewhere else. The house here was too loud, Alabama was just the beginning. A new case file was already forming in Val's mind. No rest, no peace. Just the truth. Anna had whispered a final word before sleep took her again. The farm. 3 months later, Val stood in a cornfield in Sumter County, Alabama. An abandoned farmhouse leaned under a gray sky. The air reeked of rot. This was the place. Anna had drawn it, described it. A journal hidden under Hallen's floorboards had referenced it. The second silence. The entry read, "When the Ohio house got loud, I brought the rest to the farm. Easier here, quieter, no neighbors, no records. The girl doesn't talk, not anymore." May 1984. Anna had remembered a girl, Rosie, the one who tried to escape, who screamed until her voice failed, who was buried near a tree. Val found the tree. A dead oak, twisted, split down the middle. A tire swing hung motionless. She turned to forensics. "Dig here." 5 hours later. "We got something, fabric, bone, small." They unearthed a child's remains. A sweatshirt clung to her ribs. Myrtlewood, Elementary Field Day 1984. Rosie had been real. By nightfall, cadaver dogs uncovered 2 more bodies. All girls, all unknown. Burlap sacks labeled with Sharpie. R. May 12, 1984. C. August 3, 1984. Dive. October 27, 1985. Belle stared at the evidence bags. Ellen hadn't just enabled horror. She had expanded it, curated it. Back at the station, Val reviewed one last photograph. One found in Anna's tunnel. She had kept it hidden, protected. 3 girls stood under a tree. One tall, one small, one crying. In the corner, a shadow, a woman holding a spade. On the back, she always buried them where they couldn't bloom. Belle stood alone at her window that night. Rain streaked the glass. The Wests were gone, but the network remained. This was one house, one farm, one pattern. She picked up her recorder, clicked it on. Case file 2045. 3 victims confirmed, 1 survivor in protective custody. Investigation into other sites underway. The dead are speaking now, through walls, pipes, pictures, and those who never forgot. A creak echoed in the hallway. Val didn't move. In her mind, the crawl space was still there. Not empty. Just waiting. 1 year later, Willow Lane was quiet. The house had new floors, fresh drywall, new laughter. A realtor's photo called it cozy. Sun-filled, beautifully restored. The past had been scrubbed away, but the house remembered. At 3:13 a.m., a soft rattle stirred behind a hallway vent. The baby monitor crackled, but not static, breathing, and a voice. Childlike, distant. "I told you, I wasn't the last." The vent creaked, a block shifted, and beneath the nursery floor, dust rose again, like breath, like memory, like something still waiting to be found.